Hello, everyone. This is Adam at Middle Age Gaming, and I'm here with a special guest today, John. All right, I met him
Hey
a while
guys.
ago. Hi. I met him a while
Yeah,
ago
yeah.
on BNet, which is Bungie.net. So if you guys know Bungie, probably from Halo or Destiny. And so
Or
he's with
maybe
me here
the
today
Myth
because,
fans.
sorry, what?
The Myth fans from when they were
Oh,
on
the Myth
Mac
fans,
OS.
right? Was
Remember?
Myth Bungie?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I know
If
Oni
I
was Bungie. I didn't realize Myth was Bungie.
I think Myth was. Yeah, the video game
You think of
developed
Marathon?
by Bungie.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Myth, yeah, it was developed by Bungie back when they were on Mac OS.
Okay, I learned something new every day. I didn't realize that was Bungie. Yeah, so we're
Yeah, that's
gonna
nuts.
talk a little bit about that, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about Little Big Planet, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about Dead Space, or maybe we'll switch up Dead Space and Little Big Planet order. Doesn't really matter. But
I
first,
don't care.
yeah, but first, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so as you said, I'm John, formerly known as Hoth. If you're from the Bungie Net days, if you followed my demand to come here, I did post on Off Topic the other day. I was like, "Yeah, you better show up." I told them. I don't think they're coming though. Yeah, so I'm Hoth, Super John, Cupid Valentino, whatever you want to call me. Like Adam said, I met him way back when on the Off Topic subforum of Bungie.net. If you don't know, they have a whole video game forum, and it's a disaster. But there's a slightly less disastrous, pretty terrible spot called Off Topic that you should not visit because that's our territory. Stay out. Yeah, it's not that bad. Back in the day, we were just there. It was a good time. Otherwise, I'm a college student, which there's a significant overlap between college students and I feel like middle-aged gamers, and as their availability of time and money to purchase and play video games with. So I actually listen quite frequently. Do you have any like questions or biographical information you'd like to know?
Well, since you're in college, what are you studying?
So I'm studying business at the University of Georgia.
Okay.
hmm Yeah, it's pretty neat. I graduate in May. I'm very excited because I decided I actually don't want to do business. I'm just going to go back to flight school and become a commercial pilot. But you have to have a degree for it. So
Yeah, that's similar to here in Taiwan. It's kind of funny because I studied computer science, uh, and specifically focused on AI was
hmm
kind of where all my focus was. And I went from programming computers to programming people. And there's actually a lot of similarity between debugging and teaching. So,
that's
yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
then,
yeah. You're an
hmm?
ESL teacher, right?
Yeah, EFL, I guess
Yeah,
technically, but yeah, ESL,
EFL.
ESL.
Yeah, yeah. Because I guess it's not necessarily their second language, but
Uh,
yeah, I
yeah.
actually looked at doing that because my cousins like they live in Korea right now, and I was like, I really liked visiting them. Maybe I'll be like an EFL teacher in Korea or Japan for a year. But then I decided I'd like to fly airplanes, and you need to get that started as fast as possible because it's a process.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
yeah. Like you were saying with the degree, with the teaching, it's kind
hmm
of weird where they're like, "Oh yeah, come over and teach English," and it's like, "Oh okay, well I don't really have a background in English or teaching," and they're like, "That's fine. You just
hmm
need a bachelor's in anything," which
Yeah.
is which
Anything.
is kind of I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. It's kind of a mixed feeling because on the one hand, it's like, yeah, it's a great opportunity, and on the other hand, it's like, but it feels like the bar of entry is so low.
Well, yeah, but it's also like really high. Think about all the people who are going to college to do things that they don't need a college degree for, but
Oh yeah,
it's just the bar of entry is that piece of paper. It's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. It is kind of
But yeah,
ridiculous.
no, it's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. How did you fit? I actually have questions. How did you decide to do that?
That was kind of a funny story. So I went into computer science because back in high school, some of my friends and I, we were all, gamers, and we actually wanted to go
Mm-hmm.
into video game development. So we kind of went different
Yeah.
paths. I had one friend go into the art direction. I went in the programming
Mm-hmm.
direction, and so that was always the goal. Was back then I really wanted to work for maybe like Bethesda was kind of my big goal.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked was it Oblivion and their games.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the goal. I finished university, couldn't find a job, and kept applying. Every 2 weeks or so
Mm-hmm.
was another interview. That went on for about 9 months. Never got anything. Yeah,
Yeesh.
I graduated in a really weird time because it was post .com bubble. So you had a lot of
Uh-huh.
programmers out there already who were kind of losing work. And then it
Mm-hmm.
was pre iPhone. So app development
Yeah.
was not yet a thing. So you had
Mm-hmm.
all these people from the .com bubble who were kind of left over, and then You
Mhm.
had people who wanted to go into it because how big it had been, but it hadn't opened up in the way that it did once the iPhone came out. Because now app development is
Mhm.
just huge, and Google exists, and YouTube
Yeah.
exists. None of those things existed. I remember I was in university
Mhm.
when Facebook came out. I was one of the
That's crazy.
first batch of people to join, right? So, I remember I remember being in college, and one of my friends was like,
Mhm.
I used what did I use? I think I used Yahoo email, and they're like, "Hey man, there's this cool
Mhm.
new thing called Gmail. It's created by this company Google. It's really cool. They give you like 10 gigabytes of data that you can store stuff on, but but you
Wow.
can only join by invite, and so when you join, you get like
That's
5 invites, and you can invite 5 people. So I'll invite you to it. So
that's crazy.
yeah, so all that stuff was brand new and coming out.
Mhm.
So it was kind of hard for me to find a job. And
Mhm.
my cousin had taught in Taiwan for 2 years. He was in Taipei, and he was like,
Mhm.
well, because my grandfather passed away.
Mhm.
Actually, both of them passed away like 2 weeks apart. But I was at the second
Mm.
funeral, and my cousin was saying, well, I went to Taiwan for 2 years. I had a great time. If you're not finding work, at least you're going to be making some money and you're getting some experience, and that
Mhm.
might be great for a resume. So go ahead and give that a try. So I was like, all right, I got nothing to lose. And it came down to Taiwan, which is where he was,
Mhm.
or Japan,
Mhm.
or so the big ones were, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, China, Thailand to an extent. Uh,
Mhm.
but basically it narrowed down to my mom was like, "Don't go to Korea. Don't go to South Korea. I'm too scared of North Korea. You're not allowed to go to South Korea. I'm worried a
Okay.
war is going to break out there." So then that narrowed it down to China, Taiwan, and Japan.
S- See,
And
this has a really great flavor of irony in the current climate
it's
we're
a
in right
real
now.
wonderful flavor of irony.
This is
Um,
really funny.
yeah. So yeah, I ended up being in the hot spot anyway. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to. So then it was between China, Taiwan, and Japan. And China I wasn't that interested in.
Mhm.
Japan I really wanted to do, but the problem with Japan was a lot of their programs were designed that you could only renew a contract, say 2 times or so.
Mhm.
Japan maybe less so now, but back then it was very much we want foreigners to come, we want foreigners to work, and then we want foreigners to leave. We don't want people staying
Mhm.
around. Uh, so, like for instance, they had a lot of rules like you can't work, they won't hire people over 35. They
Mhm.
won't renew your contract more than 2 times. So you can't stay longer than 3 years. Otherwise, you have to switch to an entirely different school. So you're switching jobs every 3 years or whatever.
Mhm.
But Taiwan was very much come over here and work. It's fine, no problem. So
Yeah,
then I was
please
like,
come.
okay, that seems to
Please
be
stay.
the most logical answer. So that's where I ended up.
Mhm. Nice, nice. And obviously you met your wife while you're out there, right?
Yes, I did. And
That was
coincidentally,
convenient.
my cousin had met his wife when he was in Taiwan too. So.
Because like, hey, Adam, go to Taiwan, teach English for 2 years,
That's right.
find a wife,
Well,
come
actually,
home.
it's funny too, because his wife is she was born in Taiwan, but she's actually Argentinian. She
Mhm.
moved to Argentina when she was like
Oh,
5,
that's crazy.
and she was just
Yeah.
coincidentally visiting Taiwan to visit family,
That's nuts.
and just coincidentally they met. It's like, oh, okay. So he met her like the
That's
2 weeks she was
nuts.
here or whatever.
That's wow. That's got to be divine intervention or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what that
Like
is.
there's nothing else for that except for I don't know. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
small
yeah.
timing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really narrow timing. Yeah, Taiwan seems really cool. It's actually kind of one of the places I want to go, but obviously it's like, mm,
It's kind of funny, like
but
you see it on the news and it looks
hmm
super dangerous and super hotspot, but most people are walking around just enjoying their lives, and they're kind of like, yeah, it's a
yeah,
thing, but it's not
yeah. I
going to
mean,
happen today. It's
it's
not going
not
to
like
happen
they're being
tomorrow.
yeah, they're not being actively invaded right now. It's just a
No.
question of will they, won't they? Like
Yeah.
I was in Germany during the peak of the Syrian migrant crisis, and for the most part, you wouldn't have known. I mean, obviously, you go to any major train station, and boom, there's just people everywhere. But like, you get outside of a major train station, like get out of Frankfurt and go into like the countryside. You'll hear people talk about it, but
Yeah.
yeah. Also, it's just traveling to Asia right now is really difficult. I fly standby, so positive space, and because of the war in Ukraine, we're not flying over Russian airspace at all. So getting to countries that require you to cross Russian airspace is a lot more difficult because they have to go
Mm.
around and they can't carry as many people because they have to max out on fuel. But it's definitely somewhere I want to go. I've heard a lot of great things about Taiwan and Thailand.
Yeah, I've been to
Hmm.
Thailand once. It was pretty cool. We went to an elephant sanctuary. So,
Oh,
uh,
that's cool.
yeah, yeah, it was kind of funny because
Yeah.
we went. It was one of those ecotourism things.
Uh huh.
Uh, and after that, I got it in my mind. I'm like, okay, I like the idea of ecotourism. I don't like the idea
Hmm.
of people that go on ecotourism
Yeah, it doesn't
vacations.
really seem well executed. Not gonna lie.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the execution. It was yeah, I don't know. It just the like for instance, we're at this elephant sanctuary, and they're all
Hmm.
older elephants. They're elephants that have been
Yeah.
saved or rescued. So
Hmm.
these elephants are either old or
Hmm.
they've been crippled or they have mental issues.
Yeah.
So these are elephants that are not good for the tourism industry.
Hmm.
Most of them are still approachable by people. Some of
Hmm.
them are, they're really friendly, but
Hmm.
they shouldn't be working for whatever reason. Either they have trauma
Hmm.
or whatever.
Hmm.
And so we're sitting at this table, we're eating, and it's me and my wife, and there's a guy sitting across from him and his mom, and the guy's at this table and he's just getting like super irate and he's like, I can't believe anybody would ever want to ride an elephant. That sickens me that anybody would ever want to do
Hmm.
that to an animal. And I'm sitting there like, no, I can completely understand why somebody would want to ride an elephant. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that to
Yeah.
his face, but his mom's like,
Uh
no,
huh.
no, I can understand why somebody would want to ride an elephant. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want to
It
be
def.
cruel about it, but they can
Hmm.
handle it. So,
Yeah, I mean, they could definitely manage it. People have been riding elephants since like as far back as we know. I kind of I kind of get that same vibe. As a fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I'm just like not really a fan of the other people who are fans of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure either. I'm just like, I don't want to be associated with y'all.
yeah, I like being
Like
here,
I
but I don't
walk,
want to. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like I like being here. I'm a big fan of. There's all kinds of things that I really like. I'm just like I love this, but I don't love the people who also love this. It's the struggle. It's the struggle of the Western anime fan.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
There's
exactly.
it's especially in like the day and age where it's become like largely democratized.
Mm,
Like it's anime is just everywhere now.
yeah.
But yeah, yeah, or like going to Disney. Like, man, I really like Disney, but some of the people who come to Disney, I'm just like, I don't know about you. Like, this is a place for like families to have fun, and like this is weird.
Yeah, yeah. No, my
Yeah,
wife's a
like
big fan of Disney, but yeah, you can get some
I
people that
am
are
too.
really out
Yeah, they're
there.
just like really, really into this. Like, I'm like, my God, have you watched another film other than Dumbo? Please tell me you have. Blink twice. But enough on that. I guess we'll talk a little bit about Bungie Net.
Yeah,
The
so you
wonderful
said you've
land of.
received a few bands. You told me one of the stories,
Oh,
but obviously
oh
people here
well.
haven't heard it.
I think before we get into the band story, it's useful to chart like basic history because it explains the environments in which we start. When I joined in 2016, I imagine Adam can confirm it was a little bit of what we like to call the Wild West of the internet. Some people have called it 4chan light. It's definitely not as edgy as 4chan, but the idea is like there was a lot of people there, and they were like going crazy. You talk about anything, as long as you're not being like actually super abusive, pretty much anything goes. So that carried on for a little while, and then one too many people got their feeling hurt, and then Bungie's like, we have a lot of people who don't play our games in our forums right now, so put a like a blanket forum ban. Like anyone who wanted to be an off topic had to play Destiny 2. That was their it's still their current game they have out now. So that got rid of a lot of like really old people who are a lot of fun because when you have an internet forum, it's nice to have a diversity of like I was 15, 16 at the time, actually 18 at the time that happened, and then we got people in like their 30s and 40s. That balance creates a lot of fun dynamics, and as they keep pushing that forward, you keep narrowing down the pool of people that are going to play. So you have a lot less like casual gamers, especially as they get older in age, because a lot of people are gonna like, yeah, I'm not gonna casually play every Bungie game to stay on this form. And then over the time they changed their code of conduct so that you like previously you could talk what they called sensitive conversations like politics and religion and Adam can confirm politics and religion were discussed at length. I mean, every time there was a major political event in the United States, I personally got off the forums for at least like 3 days because there were certain people who were going to be painfully irate about it, and it's just not a fun environment. So they said, yeah, no more sensitive conversations, which they'd done in the past. But you could, dance around. You could dance around. You could massage the topic, be a little creative, and the ninja would be like, ah, we can't prove that you're talking about this sensitive topic, so we're just not gonna ban you. But then no more fun. No more fun. But I've got a few bans for some sensitive conversations. I think the funniest ban I got is I had at one time this alternate account back when it was really easy to make all accounts. Um, in which I said we're gonna have a off topic death match. So I would just select two random users and say, all right, whoever loses this poll has to delete their account. So I read that for like 8 rounds, and no one deleted their account, obviously, but it was fun. And then the ninja like said, yeah, not happening. That was a really funny ban. You just get banned for silly stuff. Like one time you call someone a dingus, and then they're like, "Yeah, you're getting banned for verbal abuse." And then the other day, someone's calling someone like an absolute dipshit, and they need to kill themselves, and then they don't get banned. And you're like, "What?"
Yeah, and they have that
So
word. They have a list of words
yeah.
that will like insta ban you,
Oh, the
but they
auto
don't
ban
tell
words.
anybody what the words are, so you don't know what they are.
Oh yes, they got rid of the auto ban one. But if you said cassette, which is the French word for prostitute, but also it means cassette, you would get banned
That's why it
for a
was
month.
banned. Okay, yeah, because people are
No
like,
appeal.
okay, so have you ever listened to a cassette tape? Instant ban.
Boom. See, in the back in the day, they would just like filter out and put in blam, which was really funny because then you could get really creative with your placement of blam, and people would just like start typing it in. I know I would randomly type it in at points that don't necessarily make sense to just confuse people because that's you kind of got to have fun with it. You got to play around. But no, it was auto ban. I had the complete list at some point in a Discord chat, but I don't think I'm still in that Discord server anymore. It was exhaustive. Like I had over 1,000 words logged that we either tested or accidentally discovered. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I got an
But yeah,
accidental discover on that one time. I was people were talking about it was when the PlayStation 4 first came out, or sorry,
mm-hmm,
PlayStation 5 first came out, and they
mm-hmm.
were people were scalping, and uh,
Uh,
and somebody was like, "Oh, we need a word for these people that do this sort of thing," and I was like, "Oh, we have a word for that. It's douchebag." And apparently, douchebag was an instant
yeah,
ban word, and
boom.
I had no idea.
Yeah, they tweaked it over time because if you had the inclusion of cum anywhere in a word, they would assume that you're being
uh,
obscene. So there was a time where you could get banned for putting in cucumber.
yeah,
That lasted about 3 days. They fixed that one real quick, but it was really sensitive. Like cum bubble did not last long. Cumberband got you banned for a while. They started, but it was just bad. I think the AI moderation was bad. It was just not good.
I don't even think it was
Other than
AI. I think it just scanned for a word and it was just like delete.
yeah, 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 yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, it's just like if this has this component, delete. I'm like, don't delete, don't ban, please. Just like
Just
put
flag
a
it and
quick
let a
little
ninja,
blam,
case by case basis go be
or
like, oh, come on,
or
this one's fine.
or even just auto censor. Auto censor is way more fun anyway
Yeah,
because you can play. You can play around with that. And so things just kind of happen over the years. I'm really not on there all that much anymore. The user base is down to like maybe 30 active users.
yeah. When I was starting out, I would always have a rule that I'm like, I am never going to respond to a thread that is more than 3 hours old because that's old news.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll only, so I would scroll down, and once I hit 3 hours, I was like, okay, I need to go back up to the top. I'm not going to go any further than this.
Yeah, and that's like
Now
three
you're
pages
lucky
of
if you get
posts.
two threads that are less than 3 hours old.
Let's see. Actually, I have an active thread right now. I put up advertising this. We're gonna check this for science. How recent? Now it is later in the day, so people are probably responding. But we're gonna do some quick research. The most recent post on Off Topic right now is 9 minutes, and then 5 posts down we have plus an hour. Let's see. It takes us yeah, 9 posts to get plus 3 hours. Where back in the day, you'd have like
You'd be scrolling
a
quite a bit.
good, yeah, you'd go at least 2 pages if you're doing it on desktop. It's bad. I mean, there's a billion lurkers. Like, there's just a bunch of people who don't post anymore, and they're there and they make themselves known. And I'm just like, I don't have the energy.
Yeah, and I
So
mean
yeah,
they
that's
keep
just
shooting themselves in the foot too. Like they got rid of
yeah.
the what do you call it? The gaming forums.
Mm-hmm.
when Anthem came out, they got jealous.
Yeah, not that Anthem actually did well.
No, that's the great irony of it. They got so threatened by it,
I know.
and then it
They're
went
like, yeah,
nowhere.
no one. Yeah, well, they're like, no one uses the gaming forum, which is accurate. It was like you and Afios and maybe two other people. But then they merged it in, and then they just started getting judicious with the bans, and then people who actually were creative and made good posts because they didn't like being told what they could not post. Uh, you know, got banned.
Yeah,
Uh, so it's just not this it's not the same anymore. But that's most of what I got to say about off topic. I know several times you and I've gotten into it over this, that, or the other. One thing I will
zero
say
memory.
is that if I could go back, um, I would read posts a little bit more carefully because I remember one time I was going back and forth with this guy over this one particular issue, and to not be political about it, I'm not going to say what it was. Turns out I was agreeing with him the whole freaking time, but because he put up 3 paragraphs, I didn't read the whole thing.
That happens a
I
lot
said,
where you have two people and they're arguing the same thing, but they actually yeah, yeah, the
yeah,
way they're arguing it sounds like they're
yeah.
arguing, but it's like no, we
I
completely
mean,
agree.
I was like 15 at the time. I'm like, yeah, thinking back about this, I agreed with this guy the whole time because I thought he was trying to rationalize something. Whereas I actually had this exact same argument with my brother today. We're talking about the morality of this or that or the other. I was like, I think you're not looking at this properly. Like this could be treated so differently. It's not necessarily a moral issue. It's a society. It's a socialization issue. It's like not. And then turns out I agreed with the guy the whole time. It was crazy. I was like, that's nuts. But it was a good time. I've met some good friends actually. I actually still keep in track with some people. I found this podcast through that. Here's how I found the podcast. I periodically have a podcast, which I will not be telling y'all what it is because it's decrepit and I haven't posted anything on it since October of last year. Um, and I put up a post of like, "Yo, y'all should listen to my cool podcast," because I was recording at the time. I'm not very frequent, and then you just popped in like, or you could listen to my podcast where we consistently putting out content for like 2 years. And I said, you know what? I'll give that a listen. And I was like, cool. So I did, and it's a good podcast. You
We try our
Antoine
best.
Korean, it's a good time. It's entertaining, and I was excited to take the opportunity to come, talk about some cool things. Any more talk about off topic? Any questions about that?
No, I
Because
mean I've been there since 2014, so I've kind of seen it all. Yeah, if
yeah,
anybody else has questions, feel free to, get into the comments in the chat over here. I guess it's over technically
mm-hmm,
that way.
mm-hmm,
But yeah, go over there into the
yeah.
chat, and then yeah, we'll feel free to talk more about that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, let us know about the chat. I will answer questions. I have a question. Is there a way for me to see the chat, or am I just not in the right spot?
There is nobody currently chatting, but there is a way to see
Got it.
chat. So this is for any future guests who come on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there is a screen, and I will actually show it to you right now. This is the first time I've ever shown this screen uh, on the podcast. So if you guys want to, if you're watching it, if you're listening, obviously you can't see it, but if you're watching, uh, okay.
So the
So
screen on the bottom, it'll pull up chat.
the screen at the bottom will show any videos that we're displaying, and then there's a screen at
Uh
top, and
huh.
that's where the chat will be
Got it.
displayed. I totally forgot that when I
Cool.
went to that, it automatically activated our intro videos.
Fair enough. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, I could editorialize about off topic and Bungie and their boneheaded policies for hours, and I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
there are people who would like to hear about it. But we have something way better to talk about. We're going to talk about probably the single greatest sandbox game of all time,
All
Little
right.
Big Planet. If y'all don't know, Little Big Planet is a PlayStation exclusive originally developed by Media Molecule and Sony Computer Entertainment. I think it first released in 2008 on the PlayStation 3. The biggest thing you need to understand about this is that kind of in what happened with Minecraft over time, and if you ever played Disney Infinity, you had what you could call the core game or story mode, in which you'd go through and experience all these little worlds, and then you could build your own levels and load them into the cloud, and then people could play them. One of the couple unique things about Little Big Planet is that it was all very accessible. There was nothing that you saw the developers do in their maps that you're like, yeah, I totally could. that you're like, there's no way I could recreate that. No, 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 you 100% could. And they'd actually, if you cleared the world, give you the template for the world that you could deploy their mission and tweak it if you wanted to. But over time, there were some really brilliant people who made like incredible levels that far and above exceeded what Media Molecule actually made in theirs. And it was great. It's just a wonderful, cute, quaint game. It's got a very nice aesthetic. It's what is the word? 2.5 dimensional
Yeah, it's like
for when it
2.5D. Yeah.
yeah, 2.5D. Technically 3D, but not really. It's not. It's a side scroller. You can go up and down, but you have your cute little sack boy. You're out there, and it was delightfully narrated by Stephen Fry. Like it was wonderful. Like, look, there's a little sack boy right there. You run around, you jump. It's a lot of comic humor. Things happen. It's dangerous. You have goofy physics to play with. You can customize characters, make their worlds. I played so much of this game. Like that was the only game I played for like 3 years for good reason. They actually made a variety of sequels. I think the best sequel they made was probably Little Big Planet 2. They made Little Big Planet 1, 2, 3. They made a PS Vita version, which I played the PS Vita version a little bit, not a whole lot because it was really just a stripped back version of the main game, not as good. Um, I never played the Sackboy's Prehistoric Moves one, but I played Little Big Planet 2, Little Big Planet 3. I played Little Big Planet Karting, which is actually remarkably good for a Mario Kart knockoff. It incorporated a lot of things. It was really easy to make good maps in it, but I feel like at that point, the player base had dwindled a little bit. That there wasn't a lot of like the good multiplayer stuff. But yeah, so it was originally developed by Media Molecule. By the time Little Big Planet 3 came around, they switched developers. I do not remember at this point
Sumo Digital, I
when.
believe.
Sumo Digital? Yeah, that's right. It was Sumo Digital. They did a actually really good job with it, but I think at that point the game had grown beyond um, what it needed to be because they started introducing alternate characters for you to play as, which was neat. They had their own little powers and abilities, but I feel like at that point it took the simplicity of the game and like complicated it just a little bit too much. Like there were some good incremental improvements they put in the first one. Like they released a Pirates of the Caribbean um, map pack, which enabled you to get water, which was a really good addition to the game. And then they also included paintball guns. That was another really great addition to the game. I think that came with the Metal Gear Solid
I think so.
expansion. Yeah, so one of the things is like before Fortnite or any of those people did, any other developers did this. Little Big Planet had a ton of crossover collaborations with other intellectual properties to get you skins, cosmetics, even missions, and new equipment into the games. And that was like one of the really neat things. Like I think we're gonna talk about our next game a little bit more, but they actually had a couple of Dead Space packs as well.
They
You could
did.
play as the major characters. So there were some good incremental improvements in Little Big Planet 2, but it just got a little bit too bloated and it lost the beauty of its simplicity. And I think that's kind of where it went. But I think in the spirit of remakes, if anyone wanted to make a competent remake of Little Big Planet 1, maybe Little Big Planet 2, and re-release it on the PS5, I would play it a lot. Because it's just like really great. You played it too, didn't you?
I played Little Big Planet 1, 2, 3, and Vita. I actually
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed 3 the most, but I think part of the reason that I did that I liked that was I think it was kind of a lot of people felt that with Sumo Digital the
Mm-hmm.
game itself wasn't as good. Like if I was going through the game itself and the levels, I think the original one is probably has the best levels. But
Mm-hmm.
Sumo Digital really did a lot with the creation tools.
Yeah.
For example, they had, I think the second one might have had it too. I know the Vita did, but you could put a little control module on something and it would bring
Mm-hmm.
up a
Yeah.
picture of the DualShock controller and
Mm-hmm.
you could drag wires from buttons to different things. So you could build like a little
Yeah.
car and then you could make it that you can control your car with the left analog stick or
Yeah. I
things
think
like
they
that.
did that in before 3. But
I
yeah,
know they
no,
did it
3
in
was a
Vita. They
really
might
good
have
game.
done it in 2. I don't remember.
Yeah. No, 3 was a great game. They did a really good job with it. I think it just got like a little too complicated for kids, if that makes sense. It's like the
No,
limited
definitely
edition.
with all the different worlds and all the different
Hmm.
physics and then all the different
And so
characters
like,
and like you can get small, you
mhm.
can get big, you can fly, you can be a
It
dog.
was a great game. Don't get me wrong, great game, but just like it wasn't quite. It would have done. Great franchise, probably the most remarkably consistent franchise in video gaming, I'd say. I haven't played Sackboy's Big Adventure on the
Neither have I.
PS5. I'm just like very RPG'd out at this point, which is really funny because I like absolutely adore everything From Software does. Like I don't think they've put out a game I didn't like that I played since Demon Souls. No, I haven't played Dark Souls 2 yet, but
Did
that's
you play the
that's
original
just
Armor
another one.
Cores?
No, but I am so excited for Armored Core 6.
I've been
Like
an
I am
Armor Core
so
fan since the original. I've been playing
Yeah,
since
see, I am
1997.
Look, I had no idea what From Software was until PlayStation put Bloodborne as their free game on PlayStation Plus on the PS4, like way back when. And I
Yeah,
was like, all right, we're gonna play this.
I remember
And then I
hearing
played a
about
lot of
Demon
it.
Souls and Dark Souls, and I was just like, okay, they're hard games,
Yeah.
whatever. And then
Hmm.
Bloodborne came out, and then I think that's when I started hearing from Software, and I'm like, wait, isn't that the Armored Core company? And people are like,
It
what are you talking about?
is.
That's a Dark Souls company.
Yeah, it's crazy. Everyone talks about how hard their games are. Um, I really think that's kind of not an accurate description.
I
They're
completely
very
agree.
fair. They're very straightforward. They're incredibly fair. They just don't hold your hand. Like
That's
there are
true
games
too.
out there that punish you, and that's how they make things difficult. Like for example, we're gonna talk about Dead Space more in a minute, but if you go up the difficulty chain in Dead Space, instead of like increasing the amount of enemies or making the AI stronger, they start taking away damage from you and giving your enemies extra damage to deal. And I think that's terrible. Like I hate that. That
Bullet
is like
sponge.
or like or like level capped games where like they're like, oh yeah, you're too weak for this, so they make everybody insta kill you. You have like no chance of like conceivably surviving. Whereas in a From Software game, you could hypothetically beat the whole game at level 1 with the starting weapon.
It'd
Do
take
I
you a while,
advise
but
it?
yeah.
No, but it can be done because really it's just like, can you learn the game? Can you follow? Like, can you learn? Can you learn the
Yeah.
mechanics? And that
Yeah,
I have a
from
great appreciation.
yeah, for me it's kind of cuz when people are like, "Oh yeah, it's so hard," cuz you got these enemies and you have to play and then you learn the patterns and then you go back, when you die a lot, but then you go back and I'm like, that's
Mhm.
that we were doing that back in Sonic the Hedgehog where you play, you die, you learn the level,
It,
you go back, you play again, you've learned a little bit more. So I'm like, that's just a normal gameplay loop. That's not anything special. I mean, maybe
yeah,
it's tighter, but the loop itself is not unique.
no, they're not. They're not hard. They're exacting. They expect you to know how to play the game. They don't give it to you for free. They're not going to give you any hacks or cheats. They give you some things that make, things easier, but it's not like they're like you're running through bullet hail. Like, it's just learn the game, learn the loop, figure it out, which is great. My favorite From Software game right now, probably for all time, I don't see it changing, is Sekiro because it's like the most polished they've ever made a game. Like the combat system, and this is a very controversial take
Yeah, yeah. I
because
was
a
like,
lot of
don't a
people
lot of
really,
Dark Souls people not like Sekiro?
yeah, they hate it because like From Software doesn't let us play the game we want to play the game. I'm like, boohoo, get over it. None of their games are designed for you to play the game you want to play it. If you haven't realized that there's a game that there's a way that they're encouraging you to play, and that you're being punished for not playing it that way, you're like doing something wrong. Because like everyone's like, I want to be like a tank. I'm like, no From Software game has been designed to encourage you to be a tank player since Bloodborne. And if you've gotten to the point where you can be a tank, it's because you're grossly, horrifically over leveled.
Yeah,
And
that
that's the
that.
thing about
No, go ahead.
it took out over leveling. You can't over level. It took out diversity in class because you have one weapon. But in exchange for that, you get the tightest, the cleanest combat loop they have ever created. Like there are no battles you lose in that game where you did not 100% deserve to lose that battle. Like it is so polished, it is so clean, it is so like perfect that there's no like spamminess to it. There's like you know what you did wrong.
Yeah, I never
And
really
that's why
understood
I
how
like
you could say, oh, Sekiro is because I can't play the way I want because I can't over level if I need to. I can't see how you can justify that as a valid argument and then turn around and tell other people who want an easy mode, no, you can't play it that way. It's like, but you just said, yeah, it's like, no, easy mode would ruin the game, but over leveling, it's like,
Yeah, or like
how is that
we're
any
gonna just
better or
stand
worse?
really far away and shoot magic missile at the boss guy till he dies. That's something I really actually hate about Elden Ring and a lot of their and Dark Souls is that um at some point the game just kind of encourages you to cheese
Like
because
the
you're just
original
like,
Destiny.
I don't want to play this. I'm just going to cheese because like that's just the way the game is. And I think From Software contemplates that way more than other game studios because they know you're doing it.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, we know you're doing this. We don't build goofy games. Very rarely do they patch out cheeses. The only ones they patch out are the ones where you actually break the physics. Like for example, there's this one boss in Elden Ring that I hated him. He's the last boss you have to beat before you can get to the Hallig Tree, right? Um, he's really annoying because of just the way that his encounter is designed. But if you realize you can shoot through the arrow slits into his boss arena from outside his boss arena, and you can poison him to death, and it's brilliant. And if correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they've patched it out. Um, but yeah, it's because But in Sekiro, there's none of that. There's a couple of glitches in the AI that are still persistent, right? There's there's some of the ways that the bosses you can glitch them into thinking you're not there, but it's as simple as you attack and you parry, and that's it. You do two things the whole game. You block and you swing. And if you can figure that out, oh, and you're going to do a little bit of like dodging, but it's the most exacting, it's the fairest. Honestly, I think it might actually be the easiest one once you figure out what they're expecting you to do. They're just expecting you to learn how to use the combat system. They're not giving you any easy outs. They're not giving you diversity because I said, yeah, I didn't know this at the time, but Sekiro was actually a side project they were developing while they're working on Elden Ring because like Elden Ring was so big for them to build. They're like, yeah, we're just gonna build this, and there's actually some content in Elden Ring that very much looks like the scrapped Sekiro DLC. Have you played Sekiro?
I have not.
Yeah, so there's a boss in Sekiro. Well, the way the story ends is very ambiguous as like the resolution, as most From Software games do. If you do the true ending, but it was very much setting itself up for DLC content because almost every From Software game has received at least one DLC. And Melania from Elden Ring plays exactly, and I mean exactly to the T how a boss in Sekiro plays, like to the T. And one of her signature moves is almost identical to a signature move of Lady Tomo, who you never meet in Sekiro. Um, but there's a lot of thought thinking that in the DLC they were going to let you either go back in time or travel to a place where she's still alive. And you can fight her, and they think that what they ended up doing was scrapping, was taking that content from Sekiro and porting it into Elden Ring. And there's a lot of other ancillary evidence to support this because a big component of Sekiro is the Dragon Rot. The biggest thing that Melania's got going for her is the Scarlet Rot. She's an incredible swordsman. She uses a katana. She's missing her arm, which is a common theme among protagonists in Sekiro. And just there's a lot of things to suggest that that was cut content, which kind of makes me sad because like it's my favorite From Software game. It's really good. But we're gonna talk about Dead Space remake. I have to be honest. I didn't play the original Dead Space. I was 7 years old when that came out. We
I,
have it downloaded on my PS3,
okay,
but
yeah,
I've
I
never played it.
I had played the original one kind of. My
Mm-hmm.
brother had it on the Xbox 360. Was it back then?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I played it actually. I believe it was. I don't remember if it was when I got married or if it was when my wife and I went back prior to our getting married. I don't remember, but it was one of the times that I went back to the states, and my wife,
Mm-hmm.
either she was my wife or girlfriend, then I'm not quite sure, because it was a
Mm-hmm.
long time ago. But we went back,
Yeah.
and I remember I got. Uh, I got food poisoning, and so I ended up
Oh.
sleeping through most of the day, and then everybody else went to sleep, and then I woke up, and it's like, okay, well now I'm wide awake because I've been sleeping all day, and everyone
Hmm.
else is sleeping. So I played it on my brother's 360. I only got as far as I think I got around the part where there's that one necromorph that you can't really kill. You just have to run away from it.
Yeah, the hunter.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
about as far as I got, and then I came back to Taiwan, and I always intended to get it because I really enjoyed it, but then
Hmm.
it just kind of fell into the backlog, and then PS3 went out, and there was no backwards compatibility, and then
Hmm.
PS4, and now PS5, and so now I'm kind of
Hmm.
like, okay, maybe I should go ahead and finally pick this one up, but
Yeah, so my only reservation for it is the fact that it costs $70, but that's gonna be industry standard, I guess, and I hate
yep.
it because I like. But it's great. It's really good. I mean, there's a couple of things in it that I'm like, about. And we can detail them later. A lot of it's just kind of like story related. There's just some tropes in the story that I'm just like tired of right now.
Well, I
With
think
like,
you gotta kind of
yeah.
consider too that a lot of these remakes, they seem
Hmm.
tropey, but a lot
Hmm.
of times they were kind of the games that set up the tropes in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the thing you got to keep in mind too. It's like, all right, I have to think back to 2008. In 2008, were they making games about evil cults that control governments and corporations, getting them to do evil things?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of the same
But
thing with me playing Final Fantasy VII back in
hmm
you know 1997, and like, oh, there's this cool
yeah,
thing, and the one of the main characters dies in the game, and it was like surprising and
that's
shocking, and
cool.
and then kids, they play the remake these days, and they're like, yeah, I mean, obviously Aerith hasn't died yet in the remake, but it's like, oh, this guy with his big sword and spiky hair, so cliche, and it's like, why do you think it's a cliche?
I was about to say, like Final Fantasy, definitely Final Fantasy and Bleach are the king of spiky hair and big
Yeah,
swords.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII
Now,
predates. I mean, there are older games. I mean, if you go back to like or TV
mhm,
shows, if you go back to like Ray Earth, which I think was back in the
yeah,
'90s or '80s or something, but I mean, like, this is what really popularized a lot of those things. And
Inuyasha, big
yep,
sword, spiky
same
hair.
thing.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah,
yeah,
but you know, so if it seems a little bit
and
tropey, I mean, yeah,
yeah,
it
it's
kind of
not.
makes sense.
It's not in that sense. Like this is something that personally annoys me because I'm tired
Oh,
of it
okay.
because I feel like everything these days is evil organized religion. I'm like, can we come up with something different now, please?
Evil
But that's
organized
just
political
me.
party.
Evil or yeah, we can
It's the
go
same
back to shooting
thing.
Nazis. Can we go back to shooting Nazis, please? Like that was fun. Like why did we ever stop fighting the Nazis and the Soviets? That's like perfect enemies right there. Even like most modern day Russians don't like the Soviets and go to Germany and ask them how they feel about the Nazis. they don't like them either.
No, not
Perfect
fans.
video game villains. Why we didn't have to deviate? I don't know. But now everyone's like, ah. But great game, spectacular remake. Like as far as remakes go, um, they changed a couple of things. Part of it was because the game was kind of clunky. Like think about before Final Fantasy VII remake deviated from Final Fantasy VII story. Immaculate remake. I bought Final Fantasy VII, the original, on my Switch, and God, it's clunky.
It's
It's a little goofy.
it's really goofy.
It's so goofy. Like I was playing that, and then I also was playing Eurasian or Eurasia. No, what is the name? It was the Apple exclusive game developed by Final Fantasy people.
No
They
idea.
have a
Don't know
game.
that
Hold
one.
on. Apple Arcade. It's a thing, but it's just comparing it's like because it's essentially it's a JRPG in a Final Fantasy S world. It's still turn based, unlike not all of them are turn based in the Final Fantasy franchise right now. But it's just a good it's a great remake. It looks incredible. The game plays really well. I think the horror dynamic is there. If I had two critiques of it, I think it is a little bit of a it's more of a psychological difficulty than an actual difficulty because like say you run out of ammo, right? You run out of ammo because ammo management is a pretty big thing, especially in early to mid 2000s video games. Thank you, Resident Evil.
Yes.
You can still pummel the ever living crap out of most monsters you encounter. As long as you only encounter like one or two, you can beat them up without ammo and you'll be fine. Which I guess is, a survival mechanism to keep you from having to worry about, oh crap, if I run out of ammo, I'm going to die. But a lot of people probably wouldn't realize that because you get a little resourceful after you play one too many hours of any modern From Software game. You're just like, all right, you know, but it's really good. It's really fun. I think I only died like 3 times, and one of the times I died it was because I didn't save my game and my PlayStation turned off, and then I had to reset back prior to where I'd already made it. So I went and played over the thing again, and I died, and it was really annoying. But no, fantastic, phenomenal, looks amazing, really well managed. Um, Remake. They didn't change a whole lot as far as the story goes. They incorporated some foreshadowing from the later games, which is a frustrating story because Dead Space 4 was never made. Um, but so they incorporated some things like foreshadow where they're going because I don't think they knew where they were going when not Dead Souls, Dead Space 1 came out. So they patched up a little bit of those little awkward bits that don't necessarily make sense, but um, wonderful remake as far as it goes. It does, I think y'all talked about this a little bit, and someone else definitely talked about this. I don't remember where I was reading it. There was an article about, what really constitutes a remake or is it a reboot? Because it definitely looks like they're looking to reboot Dead Space, which I am very supportive of. They did not finish out the story, which frustrates me greatly. And they have never released any information about it on the hopes that it's going to get it picked up. But given like how big a phenomenon of this Dead Space remake has been, I really hope they do because that'd
Yeah,
be
there's the
nice.
whole debate of what's a remake, a reboot, a reimagining, and a
A
remaster.
remaster.
And it's
Yeah. Honestly, I'm more of a fan of remakes than remasters because, I get the idea of preserving and porting graphical fidelity from like, yeah, we're just going to give you the exact same game, but we're going to move it up. I get the appeal. I get that. But also, after what we saw could be done with Demon Souls, like that was incredible. And even after Dead Space, I'm like, I would much rather buy a full on rebuild that they bring it into the graphical capabilities of today. They make it look beautiful. And, otherwise it's the same thing. It's kind of like call it a reskin, so to speak, or they patch
yeah,
out some of those clunky mechanics. Um,
yeah.
but,
Do a few quality of life tweaks. I think one of the things that they said they added in this one was in the original game you restore power to parts of the ship, but in this one they made it that you can actually choose where your power goes. So you can actually choose like, okay, I want power to be diverted to this part of the ship. I can open these doors, but I lose access to this part of the ship. Or I can reroute power to this part, access these doors, but then I lose power. So that was not in the original. But I've heard that people are pretty happy with that decision.
yeah, so I think that's not exactly what translated. What they did is they added a tram station. So in the past, it was very linear, right? It's still pretty linear, but you can revisit areas that previously you couldn't. Like in the past, in the original version of the game, if I remember correctly, like you do your mission in the medical ward and you don't go back to the medical ward until you get another mission to take you to the medical ward. But once you open up the tram station in a part of the ship, you can go back to that place and you can go find all the collectibles, the random little secrets, do the side quests. Because I added a very large amount of side quests. I think the game was advertised it's like 10 hours for the base story, and then it's an additional 4 or 5 hours for the side quests. It didn't take me that long because I was, being pretty efficient of doing as much of the side quests as I could while working on the main quest. But yeah, they added a lot of stuff and they added a lot of lore and collectibles we found, and they also added a useful new game plus. Because sometimes a new game plus you just go through and it's the exact same game. Nah, it's not the exact same game. There's new things that you can find that will alter the ending and the story. I mean, there's just, I think that's pretty neat because, sometimes I feel like, New Game Plus is nice and it's cool, especially for the people who are completionist minded, but sometimes it's literally just a reskin. It's really just a repeat. I'm like, I'm not a fan of that. At least certain games like, you're From Software, they have like 6 different endings for you to choose. If you're playing Nier Automata, you have 30 endings or whatever it is.
Technically, but I mean, yeah, you're not really choosing
Yeah.
them as much as progressing through them.
Yeah, you're just going and clarify this for me. I haven't played the game. When you do a new game plus in near, do you do the whole ending, the whole game over again, or does it get you to the and you just keep working from there?
So in the I don't know about the original Nier, but in Replicant, what it does is
Mm-hmm.
you play through the first time you play as young Nier when you're a child.
Mm-hmm.
You play
Yeah.
through the entire game, and then after
Mm-hmm.
you beat the game, it goes back to you go back to young Nier, I think, but you don't play through the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. You play up to a certain point, and then
Mm-hmm.
it skips it. Oh no, you you play through the whole game and then you start again as old Nier. So you skip the young Nier
Mm-hmm.
part, play through it
Mm-hmm.
again, then it goes back to young Nier, but you don't play the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You play up to a certain point and then it skips to Kaine, and then you play through
Mm-hmm.
Kaine's part. So you're never playing the game from beginning to end.
See, I like that
You'll play
actually.
bits and pieces.
I like that quite a bit because that's kind of how I got the feeling because I've been watching the Near Automata, um, or Automata. I don't remember what the exact
Yeah,
word is. I've
Automata
been
is a
watching
bit
the
different
animated, but
because what you do is you play through the first half of the game as
mm-hmm.
2B, and then
Mm-hmm.
you beat it, and then you play the game again, but you play it as 9S. So you're playing it from a different
Yeah.
perspective. And there are parts where they'll
Mm-hmm.
split, and 9S will say, I'll go off
Mm-hmm.
and do this while you go do that. So you're playing the entire game again, but from a different perspective. So you're actually getting a different side of the story, but the
Mm-hmm.
timeline's the same. And then after you
Yeah.
do that, it
You go to
switches
2A,
back
right?
to,
Or
well, I think it
A2?
switches back to 2B for a bit, and then
Yeah.
it switches to 2A. Yeah.
Yeah, or
And then
A2
at
or
the end, you
whatever.
can play as 2A or 9S, I believe.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, there's like quite a few different ways you can take the story, and I actually like that quite a bit because sometimes you're just like I'm playing the exact same game 4 times to get the various endings, and it's getting tedious. But at least it gives you something to go through on that. But kind of getting back to Dead Space a little bit. They had three main sequels. With each of the sequels had or three main games, and all the main games had uh, DLC except for Dead Space 1. What they did for Dead Space 1 is they made, I believe it was the Dead Space mobile game,
Yep.
which
But
doesn't
it's actually not even
actually.
the same. You're not even following Isaac. You're
No, it's
following
not the
somebody
same
else.
game. Yeah, you're following on a concurrent ish timeline, slightly behind or slightly
I think you're
before
slightly before.
Dead Space. Yeah, I think it overlaps for a very brief period. Like I think canonically, while you're going through medical ward or mining, that's when, for the first time, when Dead Space Mobile ends. So they really fleshed out the lore in a lot of ways with a lot of really interesting games. I kind of want to go back and play those now, but I imagine I'll just get to them when they start. I assume they're rebuilding the rest of these. I'd be surprised if they haven't already started the remake of Dead Space 2
Well,
at
they
this
put
point.
out that if you would, they put out a questionnaire asking people if they wanted a
Mm-hmm.
remake of Dead Space 2. So I don't know if they've started
Mm-hmm.
it or not, but they're definitely up to or open to the idea of it.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine when they built the remake, they built it with the intent that, hey, we could possibly do this. So they made their models and stuff be cross applicable. Because I know sometimes people like to build whole new character models when they go through games, which
Yeah,
is
they're probably going to
cool,
use the
but
same
that's
like
a
Isaac model and everything.
lot. Yeah, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And I imagine they're not going to rebuild every single one of their people every time. And part of the neat things about the various Dead Space games is you actually do return to the Ishimura at some point or another. I guess we owe a brief synopsis or at least like a teaser for what Dead Space is. Dead Space. You're a insurance. You work for an insurance company going to investigate a distress call on the premier mining ship of I forget the company, but it's the USG, United Space Guild, I think.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's called the Ishimura. They have a distress signal out on this mining planet that they're not technically supposed to be at. And you get there and you realize all the lights are off and no one's hailing the comms. And then you land. Well, you don't land, you crash land and realize there's something seriously goofy going on here. So you start checking in, you're making your way towards the bridge. Your main character, Isaac, his fiance or wife, it's not actually super clear as to their exact status in this game. I think it previously decided that they were married is aboard the ship, and y'all are kind of like going a little distressed, relationship vibe. There's some tension there. And then you're in the main like welcome area. They're like, welcome to the ship. Please check in with the security officer. There's no security officer there, so they send you around. And you open up the thing, and then a giant monster appears from the ceiling and kills some of your crewmates. And you are running off. You're like, I'm being chased by monsters. So, the ship's been overrun by monsters. You're trying to figure out what happened on there. You're trying to get the ship restored, and you're trying to get out of there because your ship inadvertently gets destroyed a little bit later. So that's kind of like the whole idea. You're rebuilding, getting the ship back to functioning, and kind of exploring what actually went on, why there's a bunch of weird zombies with really long arms, as you can see, just running around, like kind of horrific type stuff.
Sorry about that.
As
My internet is
I can't
terrible.
hear you, I'm back.
I'm back too. Can you hear me now?
Hold on. Hold on. Let me double check my audio routing. I
Yeah,
just
my
like
internet is not great.
bugged
My
out.
house is quite old, and yeah. Everything good?
All right, we're back.
Yes, we are.
I couldn't hear you for a second. Yeah, I guess I bugged out. I was looking. I was like, wait a minute, Adam hasn't moved in a minute. I'm like, we're
Yeah,
having a problem.
my
Where did you
internet is
lose
not the
me?
best here.
Where did you lose me?
That's a very good question. I was kind of playing around for a bit. Let's see. I remember you talking about how he was a little bit distressed because his wife and or fiance was on the ship, and then
Yeah, they're
yeah,
having
run
like
me.
some relationship strain, right? So like there's obviously a weird goofy dynamic going on here. So, what ends up happening is they go into, they start investigating, they go into the main area, and then a giant monster pops out of the ceiling and kills one of your crewmates. You're like, that's weird. There's no security officer here. We haven't seen anybody. And there's this weird, creepy thing with really long, spiky claws that just popped out of the ceiling and killed my friend. So you start investigating, you figure out, you're trying to figure out what was going on, why there's a bunch of weird, creepy monsters, trying to track down your wife. And I'm not going to go super spoiler heavy because the people probably don't know it did come out in 2008, so I think we can safely assume it. But it's just weird. It's goofy. It plays a lot of psychological games with you. There's a huge component of hallucinations and psychosis. Um, you know, and the process of the game is you trying to escape from the ship and figuring out what happened. And it's a riveting game. Like I said, there's parts of it that I was like, I'm not motivated by the story really because evil cultish religion that rules the galaxy is you know
Cliche.
yeah, it's kind of cliche, but some people really like that. There's a lot of people who just really hate organized religion. So, you know, fair enough, but it's really good. The gameplay itself is solid. Ammo management is a big deal. One of the things I really like about it is that the first weapon you get, the plasma cutter, is the only weapon you need to beat the game.
True.
So like you can make improvements to your armor, your gear, you can collect better weapons, but it's not one of those ones where it's like making you chase a skill tree to be able to play the game. Any improvements you make it easier on you, but it's not like you're locked out from beating the game. Which is one of the things I really don't like about some games is where it gets a little grindy. You're like, I have to get XP to rank up to unlock new stuff so I can kill these people who are killing me. No, that's not how it goes. You can get more benefits, which makes it easier, but like the game is playable. It's difficult. It's not punishing. It's not unfair.
Yeah, and it
Which
kind
is
of caters to your style too. Because if you're really enjoying the
yeah,
plasma cutter, you can upgrade that. But if you enjoy something else, go with
yeah,
that.
it does. And the it's a well put together game. I think there's a lot of game design flaws where they artificially cap you from doing material because they want to prolong the length of the game.
Mm.
I like a good game where the game is exactly as long as it takes you to figure out the game, which is, big fan of From Software games for that very reason. Like you're not prohibited from doing things because you're just not ranked up enough. Your only limitation is how far you can progress the game and how, leveling up helps, but it's not like say Destiny where you walk into the wrong cave and like, oh yeah, you're 50 levels under for this content. Go back and grind, scrub.
Yeah.
Or like, the thousands of other games like that. The movement in it feels really natural. It doesn't feel like it's making you weak for the sake of being weak. That's another video game trope I hate. It's where it's like, yeah, you are supposed to be this like really powerful person, but right now you're weak because we say you are.
Yeah, here you're just an engineer. You're just a guy who's like just shows up and it's like, I'm just supposed to fix stuff.
Yeah,
My
and
weapons
like
aren't
your
even technically
limitation
weapons or tools.
yeah, and your limitation in the game isn't your character, it's you. Not that like I really appreciate that. I kind of like I don't know, did you ever play Infamous?
I played Infamous 2.
Okay, I never played 2, but Infamous 1 had a little bit of both. Like there were certain components of it. It was like, yeah, you're not going to be able to do this until you unlock more powers, but at the same time it's not like I'm thinking of something like some of the Marvel games where you're just like, yeah, I'm really weak for no reason. Like I'm supposed to be flipping Iron Man right now. I have his full suit. Why can I not do the things his suit can do? Because the game's just being dumb. It's like locking away features. I don't like that. That really annoys me. I'm like, you're not weak because you're weak. You're weak because the game wants you to. Yeah.
So
No,
not
but
a
you
fan of
know, you
Metroidvanias then, huh?
it depends on the Metroidvania. There's some Metroidvanias I'm a big fan of. Like I understand progressively unlocking and gathering equipment, but one thing that like really annoys me if it's not managed well, is where they're just like, yeah, we're gonna make you really bad at this because we can. Like I didn't mind how Horizon Forbidden West did it. You know, you leave the first game with a bunch of talents and skills, but in the second game you lose your equipment somehow. I mean, it's a little but I understand they can't have, you know, and it's all right. It's a manageable grind. The better the game plans out their leveling experience, the more I like it. But like sometimes I feel like it's really just like yeah, grind. Like I've been playing Dead Cells recently. I like Dead Cells quite a bit. That's a classic Metroidvania roguelite. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't played Dead Cells
So
yet, so
that's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it. I'm just trying to think of a really good example of a game that Anthem.
I never played
Anthem.
Anthem.
The power climb is tough. I don't know. I just really like I really like the design theory behind like Dead Space or like a From Software game
Yeah, I
because
just
you know.
last night I finished Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, and one of the things
Mhm.
there I'm like, because it says to beat the game it's like 11 hours, and to 100% it's
Mhm.
like 78 hours, and it's like, wait, what? And apparently there's just
That's
a
nuts.
lot of it's grinding. So like for example, uh, you have to grind to a point where you can break the damage limit of 9999,
Mhm.
and then you can go up to 99999, so you get an extra 9 at the end there.
Mhm.
But
That's upsetting.
yeah, but you have like enemies that can do 75,000 damage to you in one hit, and it's like, okay, so I have to grind my HP up high enough just so I can survive that, like specifically for that mechanic.
Yeah, they're
Um,
just like overinflating the length of their game because they can.
yeah, I think in that game, part of the problem was it was originally a PSP game, and so they were
Uh-huh.
limited to how much they could actually put in the game.
Mhm.
So they kind of had to
Yeah.
pad it out with something, and so artificial grind was the easiest way to do it, just because you
Mhm.
couldn't add more story or anything. You just didn't have
Yeah.
the memory for it. But
Is that the second component of Final Fantasy VII Remake?
no,
Or is that just
no,
a
that's
fully
Rebirth.
separate thing?
It's it's part of the compilation. It's a prequel.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Cuz like I really want to play Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I also refuse to pay for the full game like 4 times. So I'm just going to wait for it to all be finished and then I'm just going to buy it in the omnibus collection they come out with later.
I would say with Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's a lot like Dead Space, where
Mhm.
it's we would say it's a full game, but that's because we have the original. But actually, if
Mhm.
the original did not exist and you had just played Remake, it's a full game in its own on its own, and
Okay.
without the knowledge that it's going to be, without the previous knowledge
Mhm.
of there is a full game and we know the story out
Mhm.
there, I would say it would have been seen as a full game on its own.
Okay, cool. So you say like it's worth buying and then on its own
For
because like
me,
my thought is like when they finish making it, aren't they just aren't they going to release like how big is the game data wise? Like the first
uh, yeah, I don't know how many gigabytes of data it is, but it's a full game, 60 something
okay,
gigabytes maybe. I don't know.
okay, I'll look into it because like that's
Yeah,
kind of like my concern because you know sometimes they release these things I'm like is this really like because I'm really interested. Actually, I have a lot of friends who are really big into Final Fantasy, and I just somehow kind of missed that train.
Yeah, no, it's
Like,
it's a full game on its own. It only covers the Midgar section the uh of the original game,
mhm,
but they pad it out with extra story. They add extra chapters.
mhm,
You get to know Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse a little bit better.
mhm. Okay,
So
cool, cool, cool.
yeah,
Yeah, so I figured it out. Fantasian. That's the Apple arcade exclusive JRPG. It was made by Hironobu Sakaguchi and Nobu Umetsu.
that's the music guy.
I but yeah, so it's those guys. They said, yeah, we're the original creators and pioneers. We're gonna make our own thing, and they did, and it's really good. Like if you have an Apple device and you have access to Apple Arcade, I really like Korean has his iPad. I'm sure he would if he likes Final Fantasy at all. He would like that. If he likes
He's not a big
JRPGs
RPG
at
guy.
all, neither am I typically. But like, I will get behind a good turn-based game. Like I love Pokemon.
He likes Hearthstone. Korean's not big into story. He likes
Mm,
the kind of thing where you can pick it up, play it, put it down, and then move on
I
to something
see.
else. So he likes to jump around.
Hmm.
Antoine and myself are more. We like story, so we like something where you can sit down and play for 60 hours and just
Hmm.
focus on one
Fair
game.
enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough. If you have, like I said, if you have an iPhone or an iPad, you may or may not. It's definitely worth. If you have an Apple TV, because you can actually play Apple Arcade games on Apple TV, it's worth checking out. If you don't, uh,
I don't have
maybe
Mac
borrow Korean's
anything.
iPad. Borrow Korean's iPad. Say, Korean, I'm stealing your iPad, because I know he's a little frustrated with it at times, if I
Yeah,
remember
no, I'm
correctly.
definitely an Android and PC person.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, but no, it is yeah, it's actually really good. I think it's developed by Mistwalker right now,
okay,
but it's worth picking up. They built it on Unity actually, which is honestly a little surprising
why is that
that
surprising?
they got a well, that they got the Unity engine to perform as well as they did on like iOS, but at the same time I have
Mm.
to remember like the modern iPhone is way more advanced than my PlayStation 3.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
that's a crazy thing. Yeah,
way. I'm like this thing right here is like almost advanced as that PlayStation 5 out there. It's crazy.
close. I
There's
mean,
a
it's not
couple
quite
of
the
main
processing power, but yeah.
not quite the processing power, but it can pull off some sick things, and I think that's nuts.
Which is insane when
Yeah,
you
so
think that the Air Force used PlayStation 3s to make a supercomputer.
which is crazy. That is so crazy. I did not know that. That's
Oh, you didn't
crazy.
know that?
No, the Air Force. How many PS3s did they put together for
I
their
don't know. It was like
supercomputer?
100 or
Hold on,
120 or 60 or something
I'm
like that.
googling this right now. Air Force PS3 supercomputer. All right, let's look at this.
They had them running in
All right,
parallel.
1,760 PlayStation 3s to build a supercomputer.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Condor cluster. That's nuts.
I
It
was in
better be
college when
the
they did
like
that. Yeah.
that's crazy. It better be the second PlayStation 3, not the first one,
I think it was the
because
first one. I think it was the original one, the fat one.
that's the best one they made, but it was sadly very prone to YLOD. My brother kept his Call of Duty Zombies game playing overnight too many nights in a row, and the hard drive couldn't. The motherboard it just went, and we got Yellow Light of Death, and that's where I lost all my backwards compatibility with my beloved PS2 games, which it has
Oh,
taken me. Let's see, when did that happen? That had to be like early 2010s. It took me until 2020 to find a PlayStation 2 in a thrift store for $20.
this is why I still have my
So
PlayStation 2.
yeah, well, ours broke too, sadly. I don't
Yeah.
remember. Oh, I remember why. It got dusty and I took it apart to clean it. And when I took it apart to clean it and I put it back together, I accidentally punched a hole through the ribbon cable that connected the controller inputs to the thing.
That'll do
So
it.
all the controllers had drift.
That'll do it.
And I couldn't, I was like 14 at the time. So I wasn't confident enough to spend my very limited income on a 64 point ribbon cable that I didn't know if it was going to work or not. Because at that point, I didn't realize that computer components are pretty daggum universal
For the most part.
for the most part, except for PlayStation 2 memory cards. Actually, I figured that out today because I had, or a couple days ago, because there's a new PlayStation 2. I had this little memory card, and it's the exact same style of memory card, but PlayStation can't read it because it's not the one for the PS2.
They have a lot of proprietary stuff. The Vita had the same problem where you had to have
Hmm.
proprietary memory cards. You couldn't use a regular SIM card, which they look
Yeah.
identical, but
Hmm.
for
They
whatever
do.
reason,
They do. I remember my good old PSP back in the day. It was like the original PSP. I got it from my brother. I don't remember if he gave it to me or I paid him like $70 for it. It got drift. It got
ooh,
bad drift, and I had no idea how to fix it at the time. So I would shove a Lego into the joystick to get it to read as 0, and then I'd use the D-pad to play Dungeon Maker Hunting Grounds, because that was the game on the UMD, Dungeon Maker Hunting Grounds,
hey, whatever
and
works.
that worked for a good 3 years, and then it was gone. Man, oh man. So yeah, I guess a little bit more about Dead Space. It's a good game. One of the better, I think, probably not, if not industry standard remake, it's pretty daggum close. I think the best one probably might still be Demon Souls. I don't know if you played it, but it's it's nice. It's a wonderful. That was the whole reason I bought the PlayStation 5, is because I wanted to play Demon Souls. And especially once they announced Elden Ring, I was like, yeah, I'm not playing Elden Ring on my PS4. I can't do that. No. So I bought one,
Yeah, it's hard to
which
go
is
back.
crazy. Yeah, oh yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I did play on my PS4 for a good 6 months after buying it, because I didn't want to download COD to my PlayStation 5, because Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the remake one, was so big. I was like, I'm not downloading this to my PlayStation. That's ridiculous.
Hmm.
And then eventually I did it, and then I haven't booted up the PlayStation 4 since, because I don't think there's a single game on the PlayStation 4 that I can't play on the 5.
No,
Like
I
I'm
think as
sure I
far as
could.
yeah, pretty sure they're all good.
I'm sure there are a couple that didn't receive compatibility. They said there would be, but I haven't personally encountered them. The only thing I kind of don't like about playing on it is some of the games that are older look kind of cartoony now, with the way that graphics processing has advanced. Like Rainbow Six Siege fell victim to it big time. I'm like, this is supposed to be like relatively hyper realistic, but just the way this renders now does not. It just looks a little Fortnite-ish,
Yeah,
just a smidge, just a smidge. And now Fortnite's like the prettiest game out there right now, because Unreal Engine 5 is quite literally unreal.
yeah, we had the same problem moving from what are the old TVs? CR TVs, was it?
Mm-hmm.
To HD TV, and if you had like a PlayStation
Mm-hmm.
2, I remember playing Okami and switching over to an HD
Mm-hmm.
TV, and it's like, no, it was designed
Yeah,
for the blur. That's so weird.
it was like my I'm playing Battlefront 2 right now, and it's definitely designed for cells that are like perceivable to the human eye in their
Mm,
size, because it's looking real hazy right now. I got a HDMI adapter to plug into it to convert it from component to HDMI, so I'm hoping that'll even it out a little bit, but probably not. I
yeah,
might
it
need
was
to
a
go
weird
find an
feeling.
old I might have to go find an old tube TV, because I'm like, this was definitely not designed with pixels imperceptible to the human eye in mind. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm out of things to talk about in
Oh, that's
relation to
okay.
Dead
We've
Space and Good
gone
Planet.
longer than our usual time. I always enjoy long episodes. I know Korean tries to keep them short, but
Hey, me too. I will talk for anything. Like, if you have any other games you want to talk about, I am good to go. The only thing I got to do tonight is make some chicken tikka masala, but that's it.
well, unfortunately, I need to be getting ready for work at some
Yeah.
point, so we're gonna have to
Fair
call it a
enough.
night today or day for today. But yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I've had a lot of fun today, and you're more than
Mhm.
welcome to come on the show again sometime.
Hey, anytime you want. And like, I'm generally free. So if you're just looking for a little bit of hot-blooded American youth to inject into the middle-aged gaming dynamic, I will help Antoine make fun of the French Canadians.
Oh, I'm sure we'll greatly enjoy that.
Yeah, because the only thing worse than a Frenchman is a French Canadian, because both the
Ooh,
French and the Canadians hate them.
fighting words.
I know, yeah, no, it's really fun. I'm English, so like, you know, I gotta hate the Canadians. It's great relief to think that Antoine is just French.
Yeah, no, he's from France.
That's cool. That is actually really cool. I took French in college because I didn't want to take Spanish, because I wanted to be different and cool, because everyone took Spanish, and it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable. All right. Well, thank you for having me. If
Oh, no
y'all
problem.
need a guest host whenever, hit me up. You know how to reach me in
Yep.
multiple forms and fashions across many websites and stuff.
Not on
Thanks
Bungie
for
now.
having me,
You're a brand.
guys. And well, I have sources, channels, and
Hidden
potential
alts.
alternate accounts that I will not elucidate or enumerate in case any ninja are listening. Because don't ban my alt accounts if I ever want to do like some casual trolling every now and then. Oh yeah, that's the biggest. You can't troll anymore.
Yeah.
That's the thing that really killed it. You can't troll anymore because like it's literally only 15-year-olds.
Yeah,
It's
the demographic
only
definitely got younger. That's definitely true.
it got so much younger, and I'm like I know I was 15 when I got here, but I was one of the younger people on the platform when I got there, and it was just a wonderful place of complex jokes that were really stupid at heart, and now it's just a really terrible place of really stupid jokes that are fundamentally stupid at heart. Complicated dumb jokes are the best kind.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right, thank you for having me,
Oh,
guys.
no problem. All right. So thanks everyone for coming. Don't forget to like or subscribe wherever you're watching from. And yeah, catch us and yeah, have a lovely day.
Yeah, watch the YouTube shorts. Watch Adam on stream. He streams Tuesday nights, Taiwan time. So I guess last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Tuesday morning, which is yeah, your Monday night. Yeah,
oh, Monday. So Monday night, Tuesday morning. What are you
my
streaming
Tuesday
at this
morning.
point right now?
What am I?
Yeah, yeah. Your Tuesday
Okay.
morning.
Oh, that's a Korean question. Very nice. So I
Yeah.
was doing Besiege, and I actually finished that
Uh huh.
yesterday. And then
Nice.
because I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna finish Crisis Core, and then I'm gonna play Besiege,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I'm done with that, I'm gonna do Elden Ring. Well, I finished Core, Crisis Core, and Besieged both yesterday. So I guess it's gonna be Elden Ring
Crazy.
now.
Neat. Oh yeah. Nice. So yeah, watch Adam on stream.
Yeah, watch me
Does,
die.
yeah, watch you
Be
die.
fun.
It's not. It's probably actually the easiest from software game
Okay.
in the Dark Souls
I've only played
like
Bloodborne. That's
universe.
the only other from
Bloodborne is so
of those
good.
games that I played. I've obviously played all of the old
Yeah.
Armored Cores, but those are different.
Well, we can geek out about Armored Core 6 when it comes out
Yes,
supposedly later this year.
I hope so.
I'm really excited actually.
I'm
They
really
announced that and
nervous.
said, well, it could be bad, but like, I have a lot of faith in From Software. I mean, they put out that PSVR game. I don't even remember how to say it. And apparently that was really good. I'm like, wow. And Sekiro was a throwaway. It
Yeah.
was a side project that they did to like work on some of the mechanics for that ended up in Elden Ring. And like, yeah, we're gonna release this game. I'm like, that's crazy.
I'm not worried about it being bad. I'm worried about it being different from the Armored Core I remember.
True. They did say, I remember the interviews were like, we're getting way off topic of wrapping up, but what I was gonna say, the interviews did say it was gonna be nothing like you're expecting if you're a new modern From Software fan,
Yes,
which
that's
is a
the only
good
thing that gives
sign
me
for
hope.
you.
Yeah.
And they said we're going to be really granular with the upgrades you can make to your mech, which probably is going to piss me off. But for From Software, I'll suffer. Yeah, Miyazaki is a genius. I have no words to say. I will take any punishment he hands me because his games are always good. I don't think he's piloted a bad game yet.
Well, I don't think
Like
he
there's
did
been
the Armored Cores. I think that was pre him, or maybe he
he
started with Armored
was
Core 4.
he wasn't the director. Well, yeah, because they released a couple of Armored Cores after they did Dark Souls.
They released 5 on the PS3
Yeah,
and the
because
Xbox
I think
360.
Dark Souls was the first game he direct. No, Demon Souls was the first game that he directed. He did that. They really liked that, and then at that point, they pretty much gave him the studio,
Hmm.
which is really funny because if I remember correctly, he was not a game developer.
Hmm.
Actually, what is the story of Miyazaki?
I don't
That is
know.
worth talking about. From
Yeah.
Software. Let's pull up Wikipedia. From Software, and it's Hidetaka Miyazaki. Miyazaki, not Miyazaki.
Yeah, I was like, it should
Miyazaki.
be the same as the Studio Ghibli guy, right?
Yeah, very similar. Is he the Studio Ghibli guy?
No, he's not. He
No, no,
just
no,
has
no,
the
no.
same
Yeah,
name.
I was about to say. Yeah, he does. I was about to say, there's no way. Um, yeah, so he's an account manager
Oh,
for Oracle, and then after he stopped working for Oracle, he played a video game, Ico,
Eco.
ICO, Eco. He played Eco, and said, I like that. And he said, I'm going to be a game designer instead. So he was a sociologist and then an account manager for Oracle, and then accidentally found his way working as a game planner on Armored Core Last Raven. And then he directed Armored Core 4 and Armored Core 4 Answer. And then after that, he said, we're going to do Demon Souls. Um, let's see. Yeah, up until it was projected to be a failure. This is off Wikipedia, and then he took over it, and it was actually received negatively at Tokyo Game Show and sold far under expectations. That's actually really interesting. Um, yeah, and then Dark Souls. After Dark Souls came out, he was promoted to be president of the company, and he's directed I think every game they've released since, except for Dark Souls 2,
Hmm.
which is crazy.
That's an interesting story for sure.
Now he's not the director of Armored Core 6. He started off, but Masaru Yamamura is now the director. I really apologize to the Japanese fans. This is not a language I've studied. I understand the basics, but I apologize. Yeah, so he's not going to be the full director for Armored Core 6, which is interesting. But he started the development of it. Yeah, that's a really crazy career.
That is pretty nuts.
Now this is interesting. His top the manga they list that he's a fan of, which will make so much sense if you think about it. Berserk, Saint Seiya, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Devilman.
Wait, did you say
You
Song
put
of
all
Saya?
Saint Seiya.
Oh,
Yeah,
very
Saint
different.
Seiya. Yeah, Saint Seiya.
Okay.
We're pulling up the Wikipedia for it. Yeah, Saint Seiya, Knights of Zodiac, or simply Knights of Zodiac. In the French is Les Chevaliers du Zodiac. I do know my French a little bit.
Not.
So yeah, those are his 4 influences, which I only know 3 of those 4 listed. And honestly, if you think about it, makes a lot of sense.
It does. There's a lot of Berserk reference in Dark Souls, yeah.
Oh yeah, there is. There's a lot of reference. Okay, we are actually wrapping up. So watch the shorts. They're great. They're awesome. Watch Adam's stream. Subscribe, like, share, tell your friends. Volunteer to be a guest host if you can.
Yeah, no, we definitely want more guests.
Yeah, I will gladly guest again.
Sounds
because good. I have so much going on in my life right now.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Catch you guys later. Bye-bye.